Hi, geeks. Michael here. Welcome to another free preview of Wizards, the podcast guide to comics. Greetings, geeks, and welcome to Wizards, the podcast guide to comics, Patreon exclusive recording of Super Cinema with this month's featured movie, the animated classic All-Star Superman. And we've got an all-star lineup of commentators here on this episode with Adam, me, and Will diving deep into this hugely popular graphic novel adaptation. I realized something, though, when I was writing this little script out. I said to myself, September is Batman month because Batman Day was like 3 days ago. There's a million Batman animated movies we could have done, and yet we chose All-Star Superman.
Hey, I'm representing Batman here. Yeah, we kind of missed the boat on that, didn't we? But hey, we got 3 Clark Kents here. We don't have
sure
3
do.
Bruce Waynes, so
Exactly,
we got our
that's true.
glasses.
I guess I want to begin with how we first discovered this comic before we go into the movie.
Well, I'll be honest, didn't read it, didn't ever look at it until preparing for this podcast. I remember All-Star Batman and Robin being promoted in Wizard because it was so ridiculous. Frank Miller was just doing, like, painting himself all yellow and having the yellow room to talk to Green Lantern, all of that. All-Star Superman, I heard nothing about. And I've always seen, like, images from All-Star Superman around, but I'd never, ever even had an idea to read it, because Grant Morrison is like instant, like, not interested, not interested. X-Men, whatever he's doing, I don't care. And so it was one of those things, I will say, very pleasant surprise and a very accessible book, very entertaining.
Oh, so you finally read it? You just recently read it?
Yeah, I finally read all 12 issues. Yeah.
Oh, cool. What about you, Will? How did you first come across All-Star Superman?
I'm a little bit of a comic whore in that, like, I'll buy #1 of anything. And I mean, he was coming up. Whoops. I'm trying to catch myself, because in researching for this episode, at some point recently, Grant Morrison goes by they, them pronouns now. So it was after they were done with New X-Men, and that didn't really stick the landing, but like, it was the new hotness. And they were coming back to DC, and it was pairing that team up again, because Frank Quitely was the artist when New X-Men launched. So it was kind of like getting the band back together. I'm a sucker for any of these, like, new starts that don't have baggage with them. So if it's Earth One or All-Star or Absolute, like, I'm gonna be there. So I remember I got #1. But my issue is I'm not a Quitely fan. I've said this before. His characters look like they sat in the bathtub too long. Like they're like very like so like that really kind of kept me away from it. And one thing I didn't remember until researching for this, that it took so long for those 12 issues to finish.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
the cover date of, like, #1 is 2005, but the series doesn't end till like October 2008. So I remember at some point I just gave up. And then I came back and I read the trade, and I know that it's considered this evergreen kind of like, hey, if you don't know anything about Superman, this is the thing to give you. I don't really agree. I think they're better stories. So yeah, I don't think it's as timeless as history has said it is, but that's kind of my experience with it. I was there when it started, and then kind of those delays really got me.
I do want to say real quick, just on the Quitely art, I definitely did not like his work on X-Men, but I feel like he had a better inker on this one, and it really helps it. Like, it feels like more dreamlike, more like brighter, and like accessible. Like it didn't feel all craggly, and like they are more smoothed out, it feels like. So I did appreciate that improvement.
So I, for one, did not pick up the comics because I always kept hearing that it was so delayed and it was hard to find issue 1 by the time I like got familiar with it. And I too, like, for me, Grant Morrison is really usually more of a miss than a hit. Like, I didn't like Batman R.I.P. I didn't like Final Crisis. His X-Men stuff, I'm sort of like menza on. But for some reason, this particular book is one of the few things that I really, truly do enjoy of his. And again, there are some very weird things, very like Grant Morrissey sort of weird things that he does with it. But, I went out and tracked down first the trade for Volume 1, the hardcover, and then I could not find a hardcover for Volume 2, so I had to get a paperback. To this day, it still bothers me because I don't want to buy the deluxe edition now that I have these two. And I really, truly loved the story, but I would say I loved parts of it in the sense that, like, there are elements that I was like, I wish you'd spend more time doing this and less time doing this. And
he feeds you so many options. It's just these little vignettes, like even on one page, it'll take you here and take you here. And then you're
exactly. It's vignettes. It's not a linear told story. It sort of meanders all over the place, and certain things don't make sense. But it did spark one of my first, like, really big grail hunts for action figures. The the Lois Lane Super Lois action figure. And I will tell you, like, it may be hard for you guys to see, but it doesn't even do justice how good the art is on her versus the art of the action figure. But it was one of those things that I just had to get. And funny enough, I went up to my attic today to find this in a box because it's still sealed. And I also have the All-Star Batgirl action figure in the box. And somehow the arm broke off of that. And I was like, okay, I guess this is coming out of the box.
like the Nettie curse.
I was like, how did this happen? How did this happen? So I feel like I could have read an entire 12 issues on this and, like, Clark and Lois being Superman and Superwoman for 12 issues. I would have read that top to bottom. There are certain things about this story that I'm just like, I don't get it. They don't really establish well the guy on the moon, like what his purpose is. And they don't establish it well in the movie either. Like, who is this guy? Why is he so significant?
We should say, this is a project in a way that Grant Morrison was trying to get off the ground for a long time. Like, he had like this like kind of all new Superman concept that he wanted to present, and they were like, we're not going to do that. And then, like, later on, he kind of gets a call where I think Dan DiDio was just like, hey, come back. Why don't you do a Superman story with us? Because he was wrapping up X-Men at Marvel. And then he comes in and he's just like, well, I kind of have this idea, this old stuff. I have this old stuff. And it really is just like his idea book. And then he put everything into a story. But the core story, we should say for anybody who was like me who hadn't read it, is that Superman basically gets lured into space to save a team that's doing an exploration, doing some science there. And it's at the sun. Then Lex Luthor has some machinations where he basically has a creature that comes out of one of the researchers. And then in that fight, Superman is exposed to the sun to such a degree. Obviously, that's where he gets his powers. Now he has too much power.
It overpowers him, and it's also killing him, yes. And I have to point this out, because we talked about the Frank Quietly art in the book. Did you guys notice that the art in the animated movie looks a lot like Aeon Flux?
Yes,
definitely got that.
There's only one Quietly-esque panel, and it's where they're showing like the snippet of him being found by the Kents on the farm. That's the only time they try to do Quietly art, but otherwise it's very Aeon Flux, also like just anime inspired, which I didn't think was the way to go. But I was also going to say, you guys even talked about that pitch on Wizards, because that is when, like, Morrison and Wade and some other people went in with their pitch and they got their feelings hurt. Like, they were basically like, we don't know why DC would treat us like this after all we've done for them. And they were just done with DC, which is kind of why he ends up doing New X-Men, you know? But, like, you were saying you would read 12 issues of Superwoman. We basically end up with that after the New 52.
Yeah, which, believe it or not, that was one of my favorite runs of New 52, was the Superwoman, where it was Lois and Lana kind of like split powers, and then they kill them both off. I have a poster in my garage of the two of them, and how, like, I loved it. And just recently, they did a run called Absolute Power, and out of that came a 12-issue story of Lois Lane again having Superwoman powers, and now it's in trade. And I want to get it just because I like that kind of concept. I think it's an interesting take on Lois Lane. I feel like it almost at times gives her more purpose than than just being the damsel in distress.
Well, she says that in the movie, in the story, right? Which is when he gives her the ability to have those powers, he creates the serum for her to take. And then he's like, I'm sorry, it looks like we're going to have to stop this invasion of lizard men. And she's just like, well, I'd be disappointed if there wasn't something to battle. So it's like, you feel like, yeah, she would like to be doing this kind of stuff right alongside him.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit because, again, as I was watching this, I had the trade sitting next to me, and there are certain things in it that are literally verbatim from the story, like word for word, almost panel for panel.
Yeah.
But then they take out chunks of the story too. There's probably, I would say, 4 issues of the book that are not referenced in the movie at all, or like a glimmer blink moment, because like there's an element, spoilers, toward the end of the movie where he's at Pa Kent's grave, but there's a whole issue revolving around Pa Kent and his relationship with him that is just gone from the movie.
Well, we should say the person who is adapting this is Dwayne McDuffie. This was literally the last thing that he ever did.
About that. I forgot that he did that.
Yeah, so this is Dwayne McDuffie adapting, again, 12 issues of a lot of concepts and a lot of tangents, and he's trying to like, okay, how do we squeeze as much as we can into this and still have it make sense? Like, there's a whole issue of like Jimmy Olsen, like, who, basically it's like Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. It's one of those, it's like, because Superman gets exposed to black kryptonite, and it turns him evil for a little bit. There's just like these things, these tangents you go on. There's a lot of stuff with Candor. There's just like a brief bit in here, but like there's one moment that I thought was really cool because Superman's dying. He has like these Kandorian doctors, because they're microscopic size, go into his bloodstream and battle and try to repair his cells. And they're like, we're sorry we failed you. He's like, well, you bought me some time, so I appreciate that. And then he takes them over to this children's ward at a hospital, these terminally ill children, and has them basically heal those children, like all these things. So that is the one thing I wanted to bring up is at the end, he tells Luthor, he's like, if you cared, like when at a certain point, Lex Luthor steals the serum, he gets the powers for himself of Superman. And he's just like, I could have saved the world. He's like, if you wanted to save the world, you would have. And that's kind of how I felt about Superman initially. That's the problem with this story, is you realize he's been spinning his wheels for 70, 80 years when he could have been solving all these things. But they justify it because he says, when I was exposed to that solar radiation, my curiosity increased, my intellect increased.
Yeah.
So basically just saying, I didn't have these abilities before to solve the world's problems like I do now. And even then, he doesn't really solve the world's problems. But
well, we're saying that this is like one of McDuffie's last projects, and that kind of disappoints me because I don't think he succeeded here. A big issue in general is this is the wrong format for this story. When DC started doing these straight-to-video movies, Marvel was doing something too, and we pretty much decided like DC's great with animation, Marvel's great with live action, but the difference is DC from a budgetary standpoint decided that these stories had to be adapted in a runtime of roughly 80 minutes.
No, it's like 72 minutes.
It can't be done. But there's too much here. When Marvel did it, it was usually an origin story, and you can do that because you hit the major beats, but anytime DC tries to adapt a major story, even Crisis is like 3 DVDs. It's a budgetary thing, but this is a project where it should have been like, if they'd waited a while, it would be streaming and it'd be like 5 episodes. Because the crux of the miniseries itself is the 12 labors of Superman. And he's preparing Earth for like a world without him. And that is not seen here.
No.
Like that's not what he's doing, and is so tonally all over the place because these are clearly different episodes. You've got him with Atlas and Samson. You've got him in the prison break. You've got him up in space. And like, this is all the same movie. And I don't feel like you really get to know the characters. Like, the voice acting is fine, but no one here is great. And on paper, the cast is incredible. Like, Superman is cold.
Yeah,
he's like, Lois is stereotypical Lois. The only one I like is Perry because he's Ed Asner from the cartoon. You've got that continuity there, but ultimately everything felt off here.
You know what's funny you say that, because like the whole part of when Superman tells Lois that he's Superman, and they have that whole story together and this whole beautiful thing, but fast forward to the end of the movie, it's almost like she forgot that even happened at parts.
Well, she didn't. In here, they kind of play it like she refuses to believe it's Clark. So at the end, she's like, oh, I guess it was Clark.
Well, Will, I gotta play Roger Ebert to your Gene Siskel here. Now, here's the thing, Will. Here's how I feel about it.
I die first.
Yeah. No, but hopefully not. No, but this is my thought is I have been turned off by most DC animated features because of the voice acting and the editing. Like the editing of the voices always seems off to me, and there seems like there's lots of pauses. I did like this story, even though it is just like one thing after the other. We're doing this now. There was like an energy, a flow to it that carried over in the dialogue and the storytelling. So yeah, it goes by real fast, but I almost wanted that because like I tried watching that Crisis, the 3 parts of Crisis. Number one, it's a terrible adaptation. It doesn't even resemble the actual story. I was just like, they just did a totally new thing.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I didn't like that, but then I watched it. I was just like, yeah, I can't connect with any of these characters. They don't feel like they were in the same room. Everybody feels like they were acting together in All-Star Superman. I really like the Lex Luthor. Yes, it was very fun to have Ed Asner, whenever he pops up in anything, Freakazoid, whatever he's going to do, Spider-Man. But it was just like, I really enjoyed the cast performances, and that's what kept me engaged in the story, even when I was a little confused sometimes. Or it's just like, how long is this time jump? How did this happen? So, but yeah, I think they did a great job there, in my opinion.
So this is the poster they choose for the movie, right? This and this. You guys can see this, I assume?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, cool. This is not at all what the art looks like in the movie. Not at all. And, you know, this is one of the covers of one of the issues. This is the, like, cover for Volume 2. And then, like, again, I still think this is such a beautiful character design for Lois Lane. I don't love her face, but the way the costume is drawn. Then we get to here, right? And it doesn't have the same feel as that moment in the comic for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, what I would say is what Quietly seems to be channeling in the comic is a very, like, it's a European sensibility, but specifically what, Jean Girard, is that his name? Mobius? Like, it's a very Mobius style, especially the coloring. Because the coloring is so bright, but also kind of like washed out. And it really is like, it does propel you along, I feel like, seeing that coloring scheme. And in the film, it's not exactly aping that palette. And so I think it loses a little bit. Again, what it does feel dreamlike when you're reading the book. And the movie definitely does try to be a little bit more like, I don't know if saturated is the word, but it's just kind of like more intense coloring.
So, okay, I want to go back to the part where we talked about the Samson and Atlas of it all. I hated this in the book. I hated it even more in the movie. And the reason being is because of the fact that, like, Superman gives her this beautiful gift, right? They give this beautiful power to spend this day with him. And she spends more than half of the day flirting with these two knuckleheads and almost like hurting Superman's feelings. And I
think that's the point, though, is that it's just like, we're supposed to be doing this, but she's kind of into it. And he's like, wait a minute, like, we don't have time for this. Like, you're supposed to be enjoying yourself. And so I think that plays into it, but it is frustrating, but it's also like, maybe he didn't have that much for them to do in Morrison's mind. You know, he's like, well, I mean, they could fight the lizards, but what, they're going to fight another threat?
I don't know. I mean, like, he could have taken her anywhere. They could have flown out to wherever. He's got his powers for a day. And yet it's like, oh, let's have this annoying, you know, diatribe where they go and fight these two guys where he double arm wrestles them and breaks both of their arms, essentially.
I guess it's just because there's not much comedy in this movie unless you count Steve Lombard. Do you guys have a sequence that really does stand out to you? Like, is there something, whether it's because it was a great adaptation or just you like this moment in the movie? Because I think I would watch this again. like with my kids, like I would show it to them because I think it's interesting and it moves fast enough that they would pay attention.
Thanks for checking out this free preview. You want to see this and more and the uncut version of all of our episodes? Go to our Wizards Patreon, which is patreon.com/wizardscomics. As well as you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X, or whatever they call it now. Like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more. See you next time.